Well, on the biggest story in the world, the war in Ukraine, our posture should be to win, to help the Ukrainians actually win. Generally speaking, the administration has tried to do the right thing, but never soon enough. And we need to step up the pace, not act at the speed of bureaucracy, and help our Ukrainian friends as rapidly as possible. I'm glad the President's going to the NATO meetings this week. I'm also glad he's going to Poland. And speaking of Poland, when Senator Ernst comes up, she led a delegation to Poland over the weekend, and I think can give you an update on exactly where all of that stands. Clearly, the weapons are in that area of the world that the Ukrainians need. Helping friendly NATO Eastern Bloc countries get those weapons in is something I know the administration is working on, and the only thing I could say is do it as fast as you can.
I think in light of everything that's going on these days, the American people are rightly focused on security, national security, economic security, energy security. I've always said that if you don't get national security right, the rest is conversation. I think a lot of people in this country turn on their television sets, see what's happening around the world, and conclude that they should be concerned about their physical security, cyber security, all those sorts of things. When it comes to their economic security, they're watching their dollar be able to buy less because inflation is at the highest level in 40 years. And whether it's at the gas pump, at the grocery store, everything that they are spending money on these days is costing more. And when it comes to energy security, if nothing else, what's happening in Ukraine today is a reminder of how closely tied our energy security and national security interests are. And when it comes to energy security, clearly what this administration has concluded is that they can throw some gimmicks at this issue. There's been a lot of reporting about them handing out gas cards. Gas cards is their solution. They're talking about more stimulus checks. They've talked about cutting the federal gas tax temporarily. All steps that would make inflation worse. It would put more demand out there. This is exactly how they got into the inflation problem in the first place, and that is flooding the American economy with more dollars and creating inflationary pressures, which is what we're seeing today. So all these gimmicks that they're talking about make the problem worse, not better. What makes the problem better is increasing supply. The very definition of inflation is too many dollars chasing too few of goods. So instead of adding to demand, the way to solve this problem is for this administration to stop their attack on oil and gas production in this country and to expand the use of biofuels and come up with an all-of-the-above American energy strategy that will make America energy independent and less dependent upon energy from other places around the world, which have proven to be very unreliable. It's a very simple fix. The American people understand the connection between national security and energy security, and if the Biden administration isn't willing to get the energy solution right in this country by creating more American energy, then the rest is really just conversation.
Well, the Democrats realize that they're in deep trouble with the American voters. Inflation is at a 40-year high, and gas prices are at an all-time high. And yes, American people care deeply about energy security and economic security and believe that the Democrats are unable to solve any of these problems based on their climate elitist positions and policies. So Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are desperately trying to do anything they can to try to find somebody to blame. Oh, they blamed COVID, they blamed corporations, they blamed the supply chain, they blamed the economy, they blamed Putin, and now it looks like they're going to do some political grandstanding. They claim they want to bring in some energy company executives so they can be used as political props to be lectured to and scolded. Maybe time for Joe Manchin and I to bring into the Senate Energy Committee, folks, so we can really get to the root causes of the fact that why we are 1.3 million barrels a day of oil less being produced now in the United States than we were just prior to the pandemic. So we can hear the root causes of the fact that this administration is tying them up in red tape in terms of trying to use the leases. I'd love to hear about how this administration has stopped them from building pipelines to transport energy from where it's discovered and found and processed to get it to market. Want to hear how this administration has actively threatened banks from making loans to energy companies. And I'd also love to hear from these energy companies about how many Americans are not able to work because of the policies of this administration to not have America produce energy. And then, of course, we can ask about the environmental standards of those who produce energy in the United States compared to the way energy is produced in Iran or in Venezuela, and what the environmental standards regarding the planet may be in those locations. I'd like to bring John Kerry in to hear from him how he thinks things are going, as he referred to what was happening in Ukraine and Russia. He didn't want it to be a distraction from his climate agenda, and how he was worried that Putin might not keep his climate commitments. And maybe we ought to have President Biden also tell the committee why it is that he has Venezuela and Iran on speed dial, but has calls blocked that come from Wyoming and energy-producing states. So clearly, Joe Biden has earned the title of the president of high gas prices.
So 1 year ago, the Congress passed, actually the Democrats passed, since no Republicans voted for it, the American Rescue Plan, an amount of money equal to all the discretionary spending you do in a normal year. So essentially, we doubled down the discretionary dollars on the table. A lot of that just money sent directly to Americans at the tune of about $2,000 a person, and say, spend this. Well, they did. Larry Summers said what would happen if they did. And we have the inflation and the problems people are dealing with. Some of that money was actually for things that related to COVID. Tests, vaccines, testing, all that money's gone. Some of it was used to deal with problems at the border, but most of it was used for the purpose. What we'd like to know is what happened to the other money, and how much of it is still left, and is there enough of it still left to pay, to recharge the accounts that really related to COVID and people's health expenses. So again, my advice to the administration is be totally transparent with where that $1.9 trillion went. Let's see what's left, and let's see if we couldn't find out of what's left some money to fully pay for whatever the administration would like to do next to add to the accounts that I personally believe need to be added to. But I don't think we need to do it as an emergency, and I don't think we need to do it without looking at the books to see what happened to an amount of spending that basically equaled the entire discretionary budget for the country, put on top of the entire discretionary budget for the country 1 year ago this month.
Folks, we are hitting the 1 month point for the war in Ukraine. And over this last weekend, I had the great honor of leading a bipartisan delegation of 10 senators. And on this CODEL, we were able to visit Germany and Poland. And I'd really like to highlight two of the meetings that were very compelling in Poland. And the first one was our meeting at a refugee reception center near the border, just several miles from the Ukrainian border. And while we were there, we were able to see the women and the children and the elderly people that maybe had 1 or 2 bags of belongings as they had fled Ukraine. Many of them looked so weary and just truly shell-shocked, because that's what they are. We were able to speak with a woman, Katerina, and she had 2 small children, ages 8 and 6. And her plea to the United States was, please do more. We need more. The humanitarian support is wonderful, but they can't win the war if we and our NATO partners are not providing them a means to push the invading Russians out of Ukraine. She wants to go home. That's her biggest wish, is to go home, and yet it's not safe for her or her children. She has no idea if she will see her husband again. This is what the Ukrainians are facing. So that was the first meeting. And as a mother, my heart is breaking. My heart is breaking for those children that don't know if they'll see their father or their mother again. The second meeting was with a group of women who belong to the Ukrainian civil society. Those women were so passionate, and they echoed Katerina's thoughts as well, in that send us lethal aid. Let us win this war. They said, we can win this war. We just need the means to do it. Where is the lethal aid? Things are moving so slowly. We need to get the aid to Ukraine as quickly as possible. So as a mother, my heart breaks for all of those children and those refugees. But as a soldier, my gut instinct is that we need to help protect these people. The way that we can do it right now is by providing that lethal aid, and we can do it as quickly as possible. So folks, I'm encouraging the administration to step up and respond to the needs of Ukraine. The very least we can do is fight for this democracy. It is a fight for freedom.
In my 8 years as governor of Florida, I had the opportunity to appoint 407 people as judges. My standard was really pretty simple. I didn't talk about the issues. I talked to them that whether they understood that they are the judiciary, not the legislative branch of government. If they couldn't convince me that they thought they were only the judiciary, I wouldn't appoint them. Now, I had a nice meeting with Judge Jackson. She seems like a very nice person, but we have a right to understand her background. She's only had 2 appellate decisions. When she was the district court judge, she was overturned based on not applying the right legal standard, exceeding her judicial authority. She seems to be very soft on sexual predators, people that have, harmed our children. We have a right to know the answer to these things, so the American public knows that justices of the highest court in this land are not going to be activist judges. They're not going to be doing what the legislature does. They're simply going to interpret the law.
Leader McConnell.
Chad?
Good afternoon. Senator Blunt talked about reprogramming COVID aid from other pots of money. Is that the only path that is acceptable to Republicans when it comes to this demand for COVID aid? The administration said today that they might not have the money to fund a potential 4th dose because this money was cut out of the omnibus. Is that the only way to do it, or could your side stomach a separate bill to get some COVID aid across the finish line? COVID.
Well, as Senator Blunt pointed out, there's plenty of unspent money. It's a question of priority. The $2 trillion bill last year was sold as a COVID bill when, in fact, I think something like 9% of it was about COVID. It had a whole lot of other stuff in there, and as Senator Blunt pointed out, that's why we have 40-year inflation. So the money is there. It should be reprogrammed, and that's the way forward.
That's it. That's the difference.
Is Eric Greitens unfit to be senator? Should he drop out of the race?
Is there what?
Is Eric Greitens, the former governor, unfit to be a senator, and should he drop out of the race?
Well, look, I think all of the developments of the last 24 hours are things the people of Missouri are going to take into account, both in the primary and I would assume would take into account in the general.
Leader McConnell.
Left-wing dark money recently in the context of the Supreme Court and the last election. Given that, would you support legislation to require disclosures or any other limitations on dark money?
I've been pretty clear on this for 25 years. I'm in favor of the way campaigns and issues are currently funded. And one of the ways you can fund issue campaigns is through 501c4s. They cover a whole broad array of the ideological spectrum across America from left to right. There are rational reasons for not having disclosure for those entities. That's been my position for a quarter of a century and remains my position.
Leader McConnell.
To follow up on that, though, why should voters take what Republicans are saying about these dark money groups, that in this case, the ones...
Yeah, well, the reason it's...
Take it seriously when you're...
Yeah, well, I'll answer your question. The reason it's relevant is the leftish groups, who are 501c4s, are hugely enthusiastic about this nominee, which leads you to ask the question, why are they enthusiastic about this nominee? Which also leads to the second step, which bothers me the most about this nominee. Both Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Justice Breyer have said packing the Supreme Court is a bad idea. That's not about how you may rule in some case. That's about the integrity of the court. And I don't understand why this nominee is unwilling to take a position that defends the integrity of the court, leading to the suspicion, since the same dark money groups that are so enthusiastically for her are in favor of packing the court, as to why she refuses to answer the question.
Leader McConnell, do you think